we're going to stay in the right mindfulness territory for a while, at least for this week. There's so much to it. There's so many angles on it, so many different perspectives, so many ways to hold it up to the light and turn it around and look at it this way or that way. And it's a complex term. And trying to understand what it is and what it is internally. What does it mean internally? How do I locate right mindfulness? Well, how will I know when it's right mindfulness or skillful mindfulness versus unskillful mindfulness, etc.? Now, I want to speak to one aspect that I think can be commonly misunderstood. It's one of these translation things. But first, I want to read a poem somebody sent me the other day, somebody we know, and I think it's apropos, and I thought I'm going to rap about this. It's by Jane Hirschfield, and it's like this, goes like this. Even now, decades after, I wash my face with cold water, not for discipline, nor memory, nor the icy awakening slap, but to practice choosing to make the unwanted wanted. Now I want to read this again. This is clearly a meditator, This is clearly the poem of a meditator who used to be a little bit more fierce with meditation practice. Even now, decades after, I wash my face with cold water, not for discipline, nor memory, nor the icy awakening slap, but to practice choosing to make the unwanted wanted. Jane Hirschfield. I don't know the name of the poem. Jane Hirschfield. There's a word that is often associated, and it's in Pali, and it's in the text, and this is the translation of the word. The word is ardent. A monk will practice ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, as if those things are all bundled together. Clearly comprehending, ardent, ardent. This is how it's been translated. This is the translation, ardent. Now, the thing about ardent is it captures a more fierce kind of attitude around practice. We must get really serious. We must work really hard. I looked up ardent. And here's the thing. There are two different kinds of definitions of ardent. One is fervent, zealous, intense, fierce, fiery, flaming, like practice with like as if your hair were on fire. Yeah. Have you ever heard that expression? I used to hear that expression. But here is the other definitions. Also there, write it there in Webster, okay? For ardent. Dedicated, committed, sincere, wholehearted. Wholehearted. Now, if you've been listening to us long enough, you'll know that we emphasize the wholehearted rather than flaming, fiery, fierce, right? And for myself, again, I have experienced, and the Buddha experienced these things as well. If we read his story, he practiced fiercely for a while with great push and found that was not it. That was not the direction, ultimately. It's when he began to soften up and to find the middle path that his practice deepened, that his insight deepened. But even so, going back in my own practice, there was a time I was at a Zen monastery for a while and a Trappist monastery for a while. And in both of those, I had to get up at 3 a.m. There was no option. But it gets worse. There was no caffeine either. And I would remember in both of these places going into the bathroom and splashing icy cold water on my face to wake up. And I would slap my face. I might as well slap my face because someone out there might be whacking me with a stick anyway if I get sleepy in the meditation hall. Yeah. So there's that kind of intensity. And we used to hear stories like this. You need to practice as if you have incense between your fingers. And you have 40 minutes. And if you don't get enlightened by the time the incense comes to your fingers, you have to let your fingers burn. Or you should practice as if you were walking with a hot jar of oil on your head, right? That's filled completely to the top. And you want to walk really carefully and mindfully. You need to practice like this. Be so mindful that even if one drop of water fills from that tank, well, first of all, you get burned. But that's not the worst of it. Someone in back of you is walking with a sword. Okay? We don't have to fill in the rest of that blank. If he sees you just spilling one drop. This was, believe it or not, some of the encouragements that we come around practice. It's the warrior's journey. It's push hard. It's work really hard. Life is short. We can't trust ourselves, really. We're kind of lazy. And we need to push ourselves, and we need somebody to push us. Or basically our lives will amount to not so much. We'll just be another one of those people with untrained minds. So there was that intensity. Now, fortunately, we've come a ways from some of this and realized that there are so many inner sticks that we're already carrying in our trances of unworthiness, et cetera, that we don't need further additional push in that way from outside. And we would argue that we don't need that kind of push any longer from inside. In fact, it's precisely those sticks that we need to put down on this journey. Yeah. And so when you read the word ardent in the text, we would like you to think in terms of wholehearted, because it does. For this practice, we will argue with this. We will also point this out. It does matter for anything to develop, to flower, to bloom. It does require a certain dedication, a certain commitment, and a certain wholeheartedness. Right? A wholeheartedness, a kind of a sweetness of yearning. I like the word yearning. It's a kind of a leaning toward with heart. Sure. We'll give instructions all the time for that, for bringing more heart into the practice, more kindness, more friendliness, more as if there were something here that you really don't want to turn away from, something here that's important. There's something here to be revealed to you if you will turn yourself toward it, Yeah, so that's what we mean when we think of ardent now, yeah? And we want to encourage you to bring those qualities in with your mindfulness. So we would say clearly comprehending, wholehearted, and mindful. I would actually substitute it that way rather than clearly comprehending ardent. Because ardent has those associations, just like, as we said a couple weeks ago, concentration has a whole different set of associations for us than does the word tranquility. Oh, tranquility, calming, inviting calming rather than must stay, must focus, must stay present. You see? So these words matter. Words matter because of the associations that we already have to them. And really important to consider what is the language. Words may be fingers pointing to the moon of direct experience, but the right words matter as well for us, the right associations, the right messages that we whisper into our own ears as we're practicing.